Colonial welcome for Mr. Matt Stinson.
Well, I'm honored to be here today. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. It's a subject that I'm very passionate about, as many of you I'm sure are as well. I was asked to speak on a man and his family. That's a pretty broad subject, pretty significant subject. So we're going to try to narrow it down just to a couple things that'll hopefully be meaningful. This is the first time I've spoken to a group like this. I help lead a Sunday school class, a smaller group, younger guys. And so I've been on your side of the table many times, been to many retreats, many men's seminars. First time I've had an opportunity to kind of stand on this side and speak to you all, so it's kind of a humbling experience. I'll tell you, I'm not a theologian. I'm not an academic. I'm not going to be able to tell you the Greek or the Hebrew meaning of some of the scriptures we're going to look at. So pretty straightforward, but I love Jesus, and I've had a faith for a long time in my life. And I've been married 32 years to Stephanie, and we have 5 children. So I have some experience, so hopefully I can share some of that experience. But I have to tell you, I had a couple of Moses moments in the last couple of weeks, and I had a significant one yesterday. What I mean by a Moses moment, you know the story when Moses goes up the hill, and God's in the burning bush, and he's speaking to him, and he tells him he wants to, lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. And Moses said, I'm paraphrasing, "Are you kidding me? Really? Can you not send one of these guys? I'm not articulate. I can't do this." I had a Moses moment yesterday, and Bob may not appreciate me sharing this, but I was at an event yesterday, and I got a chance to talk to Bob Marcus afterwards. And Bob said, "Hey, looking forward to hearing your talk tomorrow." So I went, "Ooh, I love Bob, CEO of a recently retired CEO of this incredible organization, leading the business leaders of Kansas City, speaking before some of the top business leaders of Kansas City. And he's going to be here today?" I had a Moses moment. Really, Lord? So I get to my car, and I have a message on my phone, and I listen to my message, and it's from Mac Harnden. And at the end of the message, Mac says, "Look forward to hearing you speak tomorrow." Okay, Mac Harnden, Westport graduate, doctor of psychology, founded Christian Psychological Services to counsel men and families on how to be, good Christian men. He's going to be at the talk tomorrow? Lord, really? Am I supposed to be here? So I went home and I lit a bush on fire in our backyard. And the bush burned up. We had s'mores, and I'm here. So that's all I can say. Of our 5 kids, some of you may have heard me share a couple months ago in church. 3 of our children are biological, and 2 of our children are adopted. We did foster care for about 10 years. This is going back quite a few years. So we kind of did the foster to adoption model with our family. And so that created some very, unique challenges, unique things that happen within our family dynamics. And so I'll get to share a little bit of, through that process, we really had to rely on God in raising our family. God, when the pressure's on, you turn to the Creator, and we had a lot of moments like that. And so in doing so, we really sought God and how He wanted us to raise our family. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. But I do want to say, I know a lot of you are older gentlemen. Many of you have grandkids. Many of you have already raised your children, and now you're maybe helping with your grandchildren. My goal is that you come away encouraged, that you come away with a word or two or a thought or two on how you can love your wife more, maybe bless your kids, bless your grandkids. The way you have raised your families, I'm sure has been as God has such have you do that, and they've been blessed. So don't walk away from this going, gee, I should have. Jim Dodd and I and my wives co-lead a Sunday school class of young couples with either no kids all the way up to kids in high school. It's here at Warnell. And we have all these video series on parenting and on marriage, and we do really neat stuff. And so many times we're leading and teaching or facilitating, and we're going, that's good stuff. I should have done that 10 years ago, So, but God speaks to us in the right time. So we'll get started here. So a man and his family. As I see it in Scripture, we have two primary roles that God has assigned us as husbands and fathers. They're not our only roles, but we have two primary roles in the area of family. The first one comes out of Ephesians 5:25, very familiar verse, particularly if you've ever been to a wedding. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. It's a very familiar verse and a common verse. Husbands, love your wives. The key words to me in that verse are just as, okay? Love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. That's a pretty high calling. That's a calling of unselfishness. That's a calling of sacrifice, of uncompromising love. That's what we're called to do with our wives. And then Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Those two God-given assignments or roles is love our wives and train up a child. And the interesting thing about these two is they really work together. And what I mean by that is one of the greatest gifts you can give to your children or your grandchildren is to love your wife. Is to show them what it is to love and sacrifice and love your wife. What a great gift for them to have that as a model for them in their lives as they move into those years of marriage. And what a great gift to your wife to show, you're showing your wife you love her when you are engaged and involved and part of raising your kids. When you're not just saying, here, you handle that, I got to work, which is a tendency what we as men kind of want to do. You handle that, I got to work. But if we're part of that process, we're loving our wife and doing that. So, and there's one thing on this second verse I want to point out that I've had trouble with over years. You guys no doubt have not had trouble with this, is misinterpreting this verse. It says, train up your wife in the way she should go. And if, no, I'm sorry. That's not what it says. We have a tendency to get that confused a little bit, don't we? It's train up your child. We let the Holy Spirit work on our wives. So there's three ways that I want to talk about today that we can accomplish these two assignments to love our wives and train up our children. Number one, it comes out of Luke 6:48, is build your house on the rock. And then out of Proverbs 16:3, which is based kind of a pray and plan. Okay, we really called throughout Scripture to pray. We also were given minds and abilities, and we're really called to plan. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then in Proverbs 24:3, as we've talked about a lot today, we're to pursue wisdom, counsel, encouragement of others. So that the mentorship relationships we've talked about extensively today really can be applied in our marriages and in our raising of our children. I want to show you something real quick. So build your house on the rock. Now you can't see this real well, but a couple of weeks ago we were in Delaware. My son works for Burns & McDonald right across the street here, and he's on a field assignment for 6 months in Delaware on a project. And so we went to visit him, and we went to the coast in this kind of area, it's walking trail area and some historic sites. And there's this plaque, this picture, and it's just showing nothing. I mean, there's nothing in front of it, just kind of an old sand dune covered with grass. what used to stand there was a lighthouse in this building. And what the plaque says, if you could read it, basically the winds and the changing of the water, it was built on sand. And eventually that structure fell into the sea. It took a while, but it fell into the sea. We are called to build our house on the rock because our culture is filled with sifting sands. And our culture, it's so obvious, but it promotes emptiness, brokenness, uncertainty, confusion, and hopelessness. We see that around us. But if we build our house on the rock, that one true path of salvation that we have through Christ, we have fulfillment, we have healing, we have security, we have confidence, and we have hope. So the number one way we can love our wives and train our children is to build our house on the rock. So, actually, I'm going to go back this direction. So that scripture is Luke 6:48. He is like a man. Actually, I realize I'm not using this. I don't know if anybody's having trouble hearing me, so I'll use it now. It says, he is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when a flood occurred, the torrent burst against the house and could not shake it because it had been built well. And really that's what we're talking about here, is building our house on the rock. So there's a few ways that I think we should do that. And the very first way, which has been talked about today, I know Ron definitely did a nice job on that, is we need to walk with Jesus. That's our top priority. Our wife and our children cannot be that top priority because they can't meet that need. They can't meet that need that we have to know God, to have our sins forgiven, and to have salvation and eternal life. Don't expect your wife and your children to fill that need because they can't do that. That's idol worship. So we need to get that from Jesus, and he promises that's what he gives to us. So in 1 John 1:7 says, but if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his Son, purifies us from all sin. And then John 4:13 and 14 says, this is the story of the woman at the well. And Jesus, you may remember, is there by himself. His disciples have gone into town to get food, and he's there alone speaking to this woman. And he says to her, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. So part of building our house on the rock is walking with Jesus and letting that spring of eternal life well up within us and bring us that, that satisfy that thirst that all men have. And I would encourage you also, one of the things we should do, and I haven't been the best at this, but we need to encourage our wives to walk with Jesus. That doesn't mean we push them, but we're not a boat anchor. We encourage them. We give them the opportunity, the forum. I mean, I've had troubles when I had some times I've troubles. I've had moments where I was actually kind of irritated because I wanted my wife to get something done and she was having a quiet time. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of late for work. I need some breakfast. You mind breaking off with Jesus and fix me something? Yeah, that's pretty
That go over.
deep thought. Yeah.
That go pretty good?
Encourage your wife to walk with Jesus. If she's spending time with the Lord, man, give her a thumbs up. A second way of building a house on the rock is be aware of the enemy and his schemes. Satan seeks to deceive, discourage, divide, destroy. He hates it when we are walking with Jesus. He hates Christ-centered marriages. Okay? He hates that. He wants to draw our children away. He wants to draw our children away from Christ. 1 Corinthians 16:13 and 14, which I've got listed up here, says, be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. And 2 Corinthians 11:14 says, even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. And Ephesians 6:11 says, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. So we have an adversary out there and who we need to be on the guard against, and whose desire is to not have us prosper in Christ and not have our marriages be successful, not have our raising of our children to be successful. And he strikes us when we're most weak. He strikes us when we're vulnerable. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I'm sure you have, but when we're exhausted or when we've been in a dispute or a conflict with maybe our wife, that's when maybe that temptation gets thrown in front of us. And we really have to, as men, be on guard. Share a little bit about our family. Growing up, we were pretty careful about television. What our kids watched, what our family watched. And that's probably common to a lot of you. And we didn't even our kids didn't grow up in an era when we had Facebook and, the prominence of media and social media. So we were pretty protective of, we limited TV. And it was largely to my wife's sake. She was very good at that because I tend to be kind of a TV watcher. But the TV we watched was strategic. We loved Andy Griffith. We loved Little House on the Prairie. And there were even reruns at that point, obviously. But we were strategic because we wanted our kids, if we were going to seek entertainment, we wanted it to be wholesome entertainment. And even today, Stephanie and I, we avoid R-rated movies. And I'm not going to say we don't ever go to R-rated movies because there are times when we have. But we kind of screen the content in advance, which many of you probably do. We went to a movie recently. It's actually been a couple months ago. We don't go to very many movies, but we were sitting in the theater, and we didn't really know too much about the movie. So we pulled up Plugged In on our phone, sitting right there. That's some great things about technology. So we're reading Plugged In, this movie screen, and we went right to the, what kind of content you should be concerned about. And we're reading, and we're like, I'm glad we got to the movie early. Because we turned to each other and went, we can't watch this movie. We can't watch this movie. We got up, walked out. The theater had like 6 movies. We saw another one that we knew was going to be okay. So we just walked into that one. And, protect yourself. Don't give Satan a stronghold. We know he's out there. He's really seeking to bring us down. And you want to not give him a stronghold. I always learned of Billy Graham had this rule that he'd follow, that throughout his career he would not be in a room by himself with a woman that wasn't his wife. That may not work for us, but I've tried to apply that principle to some degree. Don't put ourselves in a position of temptation. We're building our house on the rock. We're honoring our wives. So, and we're trying to build families that are Christ following. So, the other thing is, point C, is develop a family culture of pursuing and honoring God. We talked about worldviews a little bit. We can really have a wonderful influence on our children or our grandchildren and their worldview. And we need to impart in them a Christian worldview. Now, I say do this in fun. I believe God has a sense of humor, and we need to have fun, and our kids need to have fun. It can't be this is the way you're going to think, kid, because that works for a while, but when they get older, that doesn't work. Young Life has a model, or a motto. It's a sin to bore kids with the gospel. So we tried to make it fun. We wanted our kids, we didn't want church to be something that they, they were reluctant to go to. Oh, mom and dad are making me go to church. We tried to make, our experience for our kids fun. This requires us to take leadership. It requires some transparency. It requires sacrifice, and it requires creativity. And this can be applied to our kids and our grandkids. We have a 16-month-old grandson now, and it's a blast. We're kind of back in that toddler stage, but we have an opportunity to have teaching times with him and opportunities to kind of pour ourselves into him, and we will eventually with the rest of our grandkids. So this applies both places. When you create a family culture with a Christian worldview and you show love to your kids, it creates a sense of belongingness and a sense of security, which is so lacking in our world. It's a team. We're a team. We valued each member of our family. We prioritize each member of our family, each child. We support them. My kids have different interests. My oldest daughter is a dancer and a violinist and an artist. She is our culture daughter, okay? My second oldest daughter is a sports nut. She played college basketball. She played basketball all the way through. She did soccer when she was young. My son is kind of a mixture. He liked sports. He played guitar. He was in the show choir at school. We went to dance recitals, violin recitals, soccer games, basketball games, choir events. And you all have probably done the same thing. But it was kind of a given. It wasn't, we all went. We supported each other. We had a family culture that spoke that. We loved each other and we loved God. In Deuteronomy 6:6-7, it says, "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down and when you get up." I was talking about church attendance a little bit. We helped teach Sunday school at a variety of different grade levels as our kids were growing up. We as a family, I'd always participated in the Walk to the Manger service. That was kind of a get us all in the Christmas spirit, and it was kind of a service project. And Stephanie and I are still in it. We've been in it for about 25 years. But we have pictures we have family pictures of all 7 of us in our little shepherd's outfits and stuff. We took a lot of vacations that were driving vacations. When there's 7 of you, you can't fly anywhere, you'll go broke. So we drove places. And Stephanie's from Denver, and my folks part of the year live up in northern Michigan. So we'd go on long drives, like 600 miles to Denver or 865 miles to northern Michigan were our 2 trips, or a couple times to Denver and once to Michigan. When you got 5 kids in the car, and you're that kind of drive, and I'm the typical dad, "No, you don't have to pee, we're driving another 30 minutes. But we made it fun. We started our drives with prayer. We devoted the drive and the time to prayer. We would pray aloud, and we'd ask for God to be present with us, to keep us safe, and to guide our conversation. We would have a scripture memory, and I'm not a big scripture memory guy. I should be. Ron Wheeler, I should be. All those lessons you taught us on scripture memory. But we would pick a verse or a couple of verses and we'd memorize them on the trip. So we'd be in the car for 10 hours or whatever, and we'd memorize it. And everybody have to say it individually as we worked through it as a family. Then we'd say it and we'd change the words. What word did we change? Is this right? Is that wrong? We just had fun. We did fun stuff. We did the Adventures in Odyssey. I don't know if you guys know the Adventures in Odyssey. If you have grandkids, get the Adventures in Odyssey DVDs or whatever, however they present them now. They're the greatest stories, the most fun characters, and they have such great messages. And we listen to those to ad nauseum. So I just encourage you to, in your building a family Christian worldview culture within your family, there's a lot of ways to do it, but don't be passive about that. Men are called to be active and take on leadership in your family. And so I'd encourage you in that. And then the last one, and this is my friend Jim Dodd, who was actually, I think, the first one to be asked, and he couldn't be here this weekend. So I'm plan B. He was plan A. That's okay. I'm good with that. I had him review my outline, and he added this one, and it was really a good point. He said, "Men, we need to take the lead on reconciliation and forgiveness." Okay? Pride is a sin that destroys marriages and families. And to be honest with you, men, we're kind of stubborn guys. Most guys have a stubborn streak to them, kind of a prideful, stubborn streak. It's just tends to be kind of how we are. And in marriage and family life, there's conflict. You don't live in the same house with 1 or 2 or 5 people. and not have conflict. And so we need to manage that conflict and take the lead when it comes to reconciliation and forgiveness. Proverbs 17:9 says, "Whoever wants to show love forgives a wrong, but those who talk about it separate close friends." We kind of had a unwritten rule in our family. It stayed in the family. If we didn't take our grievances or our little struggles and share them with everybody else. We dealt with them in-house. Now, we had some real struggles, especially with our two youngest who came from abused, broken homes. And they were some serious struggles. And we got therapy, we got counseling, we sought counsel. So I'm totally supportive of that. And with your wife, or your children, there is a place to seek. We've met with Jim many times, Stephanie and I, individually, saying, how should we deal with this situation? But that's different than standing in the workplace and complaining about your wife, or belly aching about, I got to go to another soccer tournament this weekend. I hate soccer. That's not the way we should be. Proverbs 23 says, "It is to one's honor to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel." So often our arguments are about silly things. Man, I'm really guilty of that. And then about halfway through the argument, you realize, this is really ridiculous. Am I going to keep going with this, or should I let it go? Ephesians 4:26 says, "Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger." In our family, we have disputes and arguments like anybody else. But we tried to fight fair, okay? And that means you don't say things that are hurtful and demeaning and, statements that really you don't want to say because you don't really mean it. And we talk and we communicate through our arguments. We don't do the silent treatment. I mean, there's maybe some times when there needs to be some space, but we talk through, and that's kind of maybe because of me, because I'm a left-handed accountant, which is a paradox in itself, so I talk a lot. Most accountants don't. But, we were quick to say I'm sorry, quick to ask for forgiveness, and quick to give forgiveness. And we taught our kids that. When our kids were getting in a fight, we'd sit them down and to both of them, whoever was in the fight, and say, now listen, you guys need to tell each other you're sorry and give each other forgiveness, because we're not moving on until you do, or you're not X whatever till you do. We taught that as a principle in our house. The other thing we've kind of recognized, and you learn these things over time, with maturity is all you have, that most of the time when you're angry or you're short with your wife or your kids, it's because there's a stress outside of your house that's bringing that into your house. You're stressed about work, maybe there's some financial issue going on, maybe there's a relational issue going on, but usually it's not that person our homes are our safe havens, and that's sometimes where we let out the most frustration or anger. We need to be, and that's okay, but we need to be watchful of that and aware of that, and not let Satan get a foothold and take that to a level that's damaging. We need to be the leaders in forgiveness and reconciliation as men. So I think I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is the next point in how do we really love our wives and train up our children. Proverbs 16:3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans." So, I believe when He says commit to the Lord, and when He calls us to pray, I just believe we should pray for our wives every single day, and our children. I believe that when you pray for your wife, your love will grow for your wife. And I ask God, I say, God, show me how I can love Stephanie more. Or show me how I can be a better father. So I don't have all the answers, but the Holy Spirit will speak to us, and he does. In Colossians 4:2, it says, "Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful." And Ephesians 6:18 says, "And pray in the Spirit on all occasions and with all kinds of prayers and requests." Okay, I struggle to find time to pray or to make time to pray. That's reality. I have for several years now, when I first wake up, I'm a big snooze alarm guy. I pray before I get out of bed. I just ask God to be there and help me through my day, and I start praying and pray for my wife and my kids. And then I have a 30-minute drive. And I used to listen to sports talk, just bantering sports talk. And then one day I went, what am I doing? I got the opportunity here. I got 30 minutes here. I could be spending time with the Lord. So I've started turning my radio off. I can't say I 100% of the time do that because I got to be honest here. But I do spend a lot of time praying during that drive. I mean, I got a 30-minute drive there and a 30-minute drive home, and there's a lot to pray about. And so take the opportunity, pray for your wife and pray for your kids. And then have a plan for your marriage and your family. When we get married, we have a vision for a great marriage. We want to be intimate. We want to be, have trust. We want to have a marriage that, is going to honor God. So, and the same thing when we have a child. We have a child, we want to be a great dad. We want to be a dad that has a great relationship with his kids, that his kids will look up to. We want to be able to lead them to Christ. I don't think that just happens. I just don't think it happens. I think we have to put a plan in place that God has equipped us to do that. So I encourage you to have a mission statement for your family. Have a mission or a mission statement for your family. Have some goals and objectives. Write them down. Put them up on your wall. I'll share the scripture first. Proverbs 14:22. "Do not those who plot evil go astray, but those who plan what is good find love and faithfulness." And then Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty." If we're passive about this, then the culture is going to run with it. And the culture will drive your relationship with your wife or your children if we don't take the lead. So don't be afraid. You communicate. That's not a good term, don't be afraid. But I just would encourage you to communicate with your spouse. We did early in our marriage a couple of getaway weekends that were purely the purpose of planning for our family. To develop kind of a mission, goals. How do we want to operate as a family? And then we tried to live by those principles. I'm going to put him on the spot here. Eric is our class here, and he shared with our class one day that he and his wife do this. I think like quarterly. They get together quarterly, and they set goals. They evaluate where they are. They talk about what's going on in their lives. Life can become consuming. It can overtake you. Next thing you know, you're doing a lot of good stuff, but you're not doing the right stuff or great stuff. We can get too stretched out. So talk about these things and plan. Plan and make sure your wife is a part of that. Obviously, you're a team. And then the next one is be intentional every day. It was already shared today, but men tend to charge through life. We're built that way. We're warriors. We're lineal. We see something, I'm going to go get that. That's what we do. We do that in our careers. We pour ourselves into our work, and that's not a bad thing. But we have a tendency to set a goal and go after that goal, and then some of the stuff on the sides just get pushed aside. We don't want to do that with our families. We need to. Our wives are great multitaskers. We need to be multitaskers too. So every day, step back and ask yourself, how have I loved my wife today? And how have I loved my kids today? What have I done? Or maybe my grandkids. One of the things that I did kind of just as an everyday thing, is every morning I gave each of our kids a hug and I told them I loved them before I left for work, before they left for school. That was just simple every day. When they became teenagers, they hated it. It was like, come on, Dad. That's when it's most important, especially with girls. And then every night, at least particularly when they were young, I do the same thing. Give them a hug, tell them I love them. So twice a day at a minimum, they got a hug and they got an affirmation that they are loved. And I just think that's so easy to do, but we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional to do that. And I do that with my wife too, by the way. Maybe not every day, but try. So the third point on how we can really love our wives and train up our children in the Lord is to pursue wisdom, counsel, and encouragement from others, which is really parallels, like I said, what we talked about earlier in terms of the mentorship, having a band of brothers. But in Proverbs 1:5, my first point on this is invest in educating yourself and yourself with your spouse in a godly marriage and parenting. Proverbs 1:5 says, let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. So it's that pride thing again. We're supposed to learn. We're supposed to learn from each other, and we're supposed to learn from God and learn from the wise. Guys, there is so much great material on marriage, on raising your kids, on dealing with difficult kids, on dealing with marital struggles. 40 years ago or 30, my parents didn't have that kind of material. They just kind of winged it like a lot of our parents did. And they didn't do that great a job in some cases. We don't have an excuse. There is great stuff out there. And we've done Chip Ingram studies in our Sunday school class. We've done Andy Stanley studies. We've done Tim Keller studies or lessons. There is really, really good stuff out there. And so take advantage of it. And do marriage. You guys are here, and that's a testament. It's a testament to the fact that you want to participate in learning and encouraging each other. Do that in your marriage too. There's marriage retreat weekends. There are getaways. There's our friend Kyle Gillespie has a ministry called Reconnect Ministries, and he was on Young Life staff for 17 years, and he grew up in this church. His ministry does a marriage weekend retreat. It's like over in Lawrence. They just do a bed and breakfast, just to connect with your wife and talk about how to have a better marriage. Things like that are really valuable, worth the time and valuable. We took Colleen Martin, who was the director of the preschool here for many years, a wonderful lady. She had a class that used to be called How to Really Love Your Child. We took that class 4 times. We had 5 kids, so about every 2 or 3 years, we're like, geez, we got to get back to Colleen's class. We need a refresher. She taught just great, and many of you maybe have taken that class, and I don't know if she's still doing it. She changed the name to a different name, and I'm not sure if she's still doing that, because I know her husband's had some health problems in recent years, but she was wonderful in helping us to raise our kids and to understand that, like we did today, like we talked about today, like Phil talked about last night, a lot of us struggle with the same things with kids. And so learning some just principles or grandkids on how to raise our kids is really valuable. So we took that 4 times. As part of having a foster care license, we had to have 16 hours a year of training on basically parenting. And then, like I said, we did a lot of Bible studies. We were in a Sunday school class. Its focus was on marriage and family. Before we had kids, and this was very influential to me, and I know a lot of you guys, maybe this would apply to your kids or grandkids. 2 years in a row, our Sunday school class made a big effort to go to a seminar called Dad the Family Shepherd. And it was so good, just teaching young men how to be a good husband, biblical principles of being a good husband, and biblical principles on how to raise your kids. I just would encourage that. We've kind of continued that. I've done that with my son. We went through the book, some of you have, called Raising the Modern Day Knight. It's a great book, and you could do it with your grandson if you have an opportunity. But it really emphasizes the celebrating part, where as you take them through this process, your sons. And me and a couple buddies did this with our sons, and then we did a retreat down to the Lake of the Ozarks and had some classes with them, or seminars, did a lot of fun stuff, and then had a knighting ceremony. So when they were about 12 years old. And then the book emphasizes celebrate accomplishments, celebrate your kids, celebrate the milestones. And milestones are, graduating from high school, getting married, things like that. We had, our group got together when my son got married about a year and a half ago and had a dinner to celebrate him. We went back through the principles of raising a modern day knight. And he's, 23 years old at that point. So just take the opportunity to, pursue wisdom, counsel, encouragement from others. And then this is kind of a given. We've already talked about this a lot. Surround yourself with encouragers and accountability. We choose our friends, right? We choose who we hang out with. Hang out with people that are positive and supportive of your faith and your desire to have a God-honoring marriage. Hang out with friends who respect and encourage your desire to be an involved father and to train up your children in the Lord. That's who we need to be connected to. You should be hanging out with somebody if you're hanging out with somebody who's complaining about their wife all the time, maybe you should become that person to mentor or help them, because that's not going to help you in your marriage, and it's not going to help them in their marriage. And same thing with our children. And I always had a principle, and it probably goes all the way back to Dad the Family Shepherd, is don't get involved in wife bashing, okay? Or locker room talk. We've heard about locker room talk lately, right? Man, we are not to be involved in coarse jesting, but when I was in the workplace when I was a younger man and people would be sitting around talking and complaining about their wife, and I just kind of walked away from that stuff. My son is experiencing that now. He's been married 18 months. He's in Dover, Delaware on a construction project, so he's around all these construction guys all the time, and they just gripe about their wives and their problems they have in life just constantly. He's been married like 18 months. So he's just realizing that goes on to a great extent. And we can either let that feed into our brain, or we can go, I'm not going there. I love my wife, and I'm not going to be a part of that. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. So just be around people that are going to encourage you in your faith, in your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids. And the last one is, it's a big part of our weekends, have a mentor. We need to watch, we need to learn, we need to replicate. Proverbs 12:15 says, the way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. And Proverbs 17:17, which is on the cover of our handout, or workbook, is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. It's becoming more and more clear in our society and our culture that we need to be different. One of the ways we're a witness to the world is that we love our wives and we train up our children, to walk with God. And when they're old, they won't depart from it. So that's kind of the message and I wanted to send today is, it's a calling from God, and it gives great blessings if God doesn't call us something He doesn't equip us for, and through following Him and honoring Him, we'll have wonderful blessings from that. Now, I wanted to say, I have a worksheet in here, and we're not going to get to that, so which I think is fine. You can kind of send it home as a homework if you want. But what I'm going to talk about in a minute, when I talked about, working with your spouse through these things, you can sit down with your spouse and you can say, what are, this first question, what are some attributes or characteristics we want in our marriage? We want our marriage to be intimate. We want our marriage to feel secure. We want our marriage to have honesty. We want our marriage to have good communication. List out what you'd like to, it doesn't matter how long you've been married, you can still define really what you want in your marriage. And then question 2 is, what are some ways we can show love for our wife that will result in our marriage having these attributes? And what are some things we can do that will result in these attributes? Because we can do this. And we do this. And many of you, I think, probably have wonderful marriages. But kind of keep that, keep that at the forefront of your mind each day. How do we bless our wife? How do we train our children? How do we use those teachable moments? So I'll let you I'll leave the worksheet kind of for you guys if you want to do that on your own. So in conclusion today, we're called to love God and to be obedient to His Word. Here, I actually have If we honor God by loving our wife and training our children in the Lord, that's being obedient to His Word. And if we do that, we're going to experience joy. Not just happiness, we're going to experience true joy. We're going to grow in our faith in Jesus Christ. We're going to be equipped to endure hardship. And I'm sure there's been a lot of hardship endured in this room. We've had hardship in our life. I know you don't go through life without hardship. But if you've loved your wife and trained your children well, then I really think you will be much more equipped to help endure that hardship. And we'll know a peace that surpasses all understanding, because that's promised to us in the Word. So, anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Way to go, Matt.